To make the bourbon cake, you're going to need to start with a chocolate cake mix. I am using the Pillsbury dark chocolate cake. I really like the chocolate flavor. I've got 2 here because I want to make 2 full 8-inch layers. If you've ever used a mix, you've probably noticed that it makes really thin layers. So to make 2 full layers, I'm going to need about 1 3/4 of cake batter, some vanilla, butter, eggs, milk, and of course our bourbon. Let's go ahead and whip up our cake. While my oven's preheating, and before we actually start mixing up the cake, I've got a 1/2 cup of bourbon, and to that I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and then we're just going to set it aside for now. I've set up my stand mixer, and to my stainless steel bowl I've added my 2 cake mixes, and now to that I'm going to add 1 1/2 cups of milk. Each box requires 1 cup of milk, so for 2 it would normally be 2 cups, but we're going to add that 1/2 cup of bourbon, so we're going to cut the milk down by 1/2 cup. And I'll stir that in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my 1/2 cup of bourbon and vanilla mixture. Next, I'm going to add 8 eggs to my mixture. Each box calls for 3 eggs, so that would be a total of 6. We're going to add 1 additional egg for each of our mixes. And lastly, to our batter, I've melted 1 cup of butter and let it cool to room temperature. Each mix calls for a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. We're replacing that with butter. And so we need 1 cup for our 2 mixes. And I'm going to slowly add that in while my mixer is on low speed. Our cake batter is complete, and hopefully you can see how much thicker this is than your normal cake mix. So your cake's going to be a little bit denser. You can smell just a hint of that bourbon in the batter. It smells delicious. We're ready to put this in our prepared cake pans. Now we're ready to bake our cakes in a preheated 350-degree oven for 40 to 50 minutes until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. Our cakes have cooled, and now it's time to make our chocolate bourbon ganache that's going to go between the layers of our cake. You're going to need 4 ounces of chocolate. I'm using semi-sweet, but you could use milk chocolate or dark chocolate if you'd prefer. Heavy cream, or what we call here in the States, whipping cream, and a little bit more bourbon. Let's go ahead and make our ganache. To begin our ganache, I took my 4 ounces of chocolate and chopped it up into little pieces. Actually, I just put it in a baggie and beat it with a rolling pin until I got it into small pieces. Now I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of the hot whipping cream. I just put it on the stove until it reached a simmer, and we'll stir that in to melt our chocolate. Now that my chocolate is smooth, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of bourbon. You can taste this and see if you want to add a little bit more. It's up to you. And we'll stir that in. Then we're going to set this aside and let it cool down. We want it to reach the consistency of kind of a peanut butter. We want it to be nice and spreadable. Our chocolate bourbon ganache is set up for about an hour at room temperature, and it's about the consistency of peanut butter. So we're ready to spread it onto our cake. Once we fill our cake and stack our layers, we'll be ready to frost the entire thing. I whipped up some chocolate buttercream frosting. We did a video on a chocolate coffee buttercream frosting. This is the same recipe, I just chose not to add the coffee to it. This cake is decadent enough, but I think it would also be delicious with the coffee chocolate buttercream as well. So I'll leave that up to you. I'm going to frost the cake, and we'll see what it looks like when we're done. Here is our completed chocolate bourbon cake with chocolate bourbon ganache and chocolate buttercream frosting. It's decadent and delicious. I'm going to finish it off with some chocolate dallies. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please join our channel. We hope to see you back soon.